All right, to get us started this morning, we have a brief video, and so I'm going to invite you to take a look at the side screens, and as you do, pay very careful attention to the instructions. So go ahead and let's see if we can get that video queued up and follow the instructions.
Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball. The correct answer is 16 passes. Did you spot the gorilla? For people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half miss the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color or the player on the black team leaving the game? Let's rewind and watch it again. Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold. When you're looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events.
I don't know how many of you saw the gorilla. Did you see the gorilla the first time through? Okay, so a bunch of you got your hands raised. Have you seen the video? Yeah, you saw the video? No, you didn't see it. Okay, so some of you never seen the video, but you caught the gorilla. The first time I viewed the video, I said, "What? There's no way there was a gorilla there. That's ridiculous. There's no way. I would have seen the gorilla. Like I know what's in front of me." And so then I rewound it, or when they rewound it and showed it to me, I again denied it and said, "There's no way that's true. That had to be like they videoed that later on and put that in." And so I had to rewatch the whole thing again before I got convinced. So I denied the fact that I denied that there was a gorilla there. That's how certain I was of my ability to be in tune with what's going on. So we get tunnel vision, right? It's this concept so these researchers, Daniel Simmons and Christopher Chabris in 1999 first conducted this experiment. It's an experiment on people's attention and what happens when we focus our attention so much on one thing and how that would then potentially affect us. So as the author, you heard his voice say, about 50% of the time, people miss the gorilla. Or if you had seen the gorilla before, maybe you missed the team member in black transition out or the changing of the color of the curtain. And you're like, "Oh man, I was looking for the gorilla, I saw that, but I missed those things." Because we get tunnel vision. There's some language that they coined to define this experience that we as humans have. It's called inattentional blindness. And it's a cognitive phenomena where a person fails to notice unexpected but visible objects because their attention is so focused on another task. Our focus is we're so intent on something else that we miss the obvious thing that's in front of us. There's two observations or two learnings that we take from this research. The first one is that we obviously have a limit, right? Significant limitation in our attention and our awareness of our surroundings. We are limited as people. No matter how confident we may be, how absolutely certain I was that there was no gorilla in there. I mean, it reflects the reality that I am limited in my ability to pay attention and to actually be aware of what's going on around me. And secondly, we can overlook things that are even as salient as a dancing gorilla, a gorilla pounding his chest in the middle of a video. We can miss this because we're so focused on something else. This is what these researchers call inattentional blindness. Now, it's the same phenomenon, women, that you experience when you ask the guy in your life to get the ketchup out of the refrigerator, and as he goes to get the ketchup out of the refrigerator, he's thinking about the last play that he saw on the big screen. And he spends like 15 seconds in there rummaging around, pulling almost everything out before he pulls his head out of the refrigerator and turns and says, "I can't find the ketchup." And you walk over, nudge the milk carton out of the way, and grab the ketchup. And it was right there, only 3 inches from his nose the whole time, right? Inattentional blindness. Guys, it's the same thing that happens to the women in your life when they are talking on the cell phone and they're driving. And they drive right past the exit. And they don't realize that they drove past the exit until they see the big sign that says, "Welcome to Maryland." True story, true story. I had a cousin who was traveling down, and his wife was driving, and he had fallen asleep. They were driving from Buffalo. She didn't know that she missed the exit in Harrisburg to come on 283 towards Elizabethtown until she got to Maryland. Oops. Inattentional blindness. This is what happens. We probably every one of us can identify stories like that in our lives. Inattentional blindness. Now, if this is true in our material world, I wonder if it potentially is true in our spiritual world. Is there such a thing, perhaps, of spiritual inattentional blindness? Now, if you think about who we are as people, as people, we're quite complex. There's a material part of us. By this I mean, like, you can walk up to a rock and you can knock on it, or to the table and you can knock on it, or you can walk up to the hood of your car and you can knock on it, right? But unlike a car or a table or a rock, you as a person also have this part of you that's spiritual, that you can't poke at, that you can't touch, that you can't knock on. That spiritual part of you is quite complex, right? It's this place inside of you in which you think. It's the place inside of you in which you feel. It's the place inside of you in which you make decisions and have choices. Right? We might talk about that in terms of our mind, in terms of our emotions, and in terms of our will. We are material as people, but unlike cars and rocks and tables, we have a spirit to us. There's an immaterial nature to us, something spiritual. And my question this morning is, could you, in that immaterial space of yourself, be blind to other spiritual things? Might it be possible that you have, I have, the world has inattentional spiritual blindness? So maybe a definition for this would be the inability to perceive spiritual reality because we're so focused on, our attention is so focused on maybe our hurts or hard things that have taken place in our life, or perhaps ideas or concerns that we have. It might... let's dig into that for just a second. Think about the hurts that you experience in life. All of us have experienced hurts in life. There are things that you are processing, that you are working through, things that, because of the hurt in your life, maybe has you focused on them, or maybe you try to run away from them, but they're constantly there with you. And because you're so aware of those hurts, probably not really even aware, and this is where the inattention to spiritual blindness comes in, you're probably not even aware of the depth and the complexity of all that's going on inside of you. And because of that, it affects you as you interact with other people who also maybe are offering ideas or suggestions, or maybe have a perspective and you can't even see or hear it. Or perhaps the Spirit of God, through His Word, is saying something to you, but you don't hear it and can't see it because you're so focused on your hurts, the pain, and you don't even know that you're focused on it. Or could it be something like the ideas of our age, the wisdom of our age, the philosophical ideas, the scientific ideas, the religious ideas of our day? And they captivate us, and we reflect on them, and they begin to shape the way that we look at life and the world around us, and we perhaps begin to embrace some of them and move in that direction. And as a result, we miss or are not aware, can't see the reality of what truly is true about the spiritual world around us. Is it possible to have inattentional spiritual blindness? Yes, I think it's possible, and we all struggle with it. So we're in this series, Cultivating Meaningful Relationships. And in this series, we've been saying there are obstacles, there's things that get in the way of us arriving at or us experiencing deep, meaningful relationships. And one of the things that gets in the way of that is our inattention to spiritual blindness. That we have this problem with being able to truly see what is the truth. Paul teaches us this concept in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. So if you have a Bible, I invite you to open up and join with me in reading this. If you don't have a Bible, there's some at the Welcome Center. We make them available. You can feel free to grab one. Or if you want, you can just follow on the side screens. And as I read, pay attention for this concept of the spiritual realm. Listen for it. And then what Paul might have to say about the spiritual realm around us. So beginning in verse 4, that's where we're going to start in chapter 2. Paul says, he says, my message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words. I'm just going to pause and add a little rabbit trail here for a second. My message and my preaching, which I work really hard at, right? I spend a lot of time trying to study and to prepare and to preach a message that is persuasive and that does offer wisdom, right? And Paul says, my message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words. What is he saying? What he's saying is, it's not that I'm not working to deliver a valuable message. What he's saying is that what I am delivering, I am not coming with the ability to influence or change you. I can't do that. No matter how fancy of a way I put together a message, no matter how many interesting little sound bites that might come from a message, it's not persuasive enough. It can't get you, is what he's saying. He says, my message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power. Oh, now we're talking about the Spirit. It's the Spirit. So that your faith might not rest on men's wisdom, men's ideas, men's philosophical, sociological, psychological ideas, but on God's power. But on God's power, God who's Spirit. Now we do, however, speak a message of wisdom among the mature. So the mature understand the message that we're presenting. Those who have grown up, who have become mature in their thought process. But not the wisdom of this age or the rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. No, we speak of God's secret wisdom. A wisdom that has been hidden. That God designed for our glory before time began. Sounds a little bit like inattentional spiritual blindness. No, we speak of God's secret wisdom, a wisdom that has been hidden, and that God destined for our glory before time began. None of the rulers of this age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. They were spiritually blind. However, as it is written, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. Nobody could come up with this, but God has revealed it to us by his Spirit. See, the Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. For who among man actually knows the thoughts of a man. It's a person, really. That the word doesn't mean men as in the gender. It means people. For who among people knows the thoughts of people except the person's spirit within him? And in the same way, no one knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. Now, we have not received the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, that we may understand what God has freely given to us. And so this is what we speak, not in words taught by human wisdom, but in words taught by the Spirit, expressing spiritual truths in spiritual words. You see, the man without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him. They don't make sense to him. And he cannot understand them because he is spiritually, or because these concepts or these ideas, these things that come from the Spirit are only spiritually discerned. Paul says a lot here. In essence, I think what we can say is there are four main ideas that he is instructing us on, which will then lead us to an application point, which I'm going to list as the fifth observation. It's my observation based on the four things that he says. So if you listen to the text, I think one of the first things that you would have to come away with is that Paul is telling us there's such a thing as a spiritual dimension within our world. There's a spiritual dimension within our world. There's 13 mentions, if you counted. There was 13 times that the word spirit was mentioned. He talked about the spirit of a man. Right? And that's where we started, right? Back in the beginning of this message was just talking about how we have mind, emotion, will. There's something that's immaterial about us. Paul identifies that. There's a spirit that people have. Secondly, he talks about the spirit of the world. That's an interesting phrase, referencing an idea or the mindset or the ideas of the age, the time in which we live, the philosophical thoughts, the cultural mindset. Third, he talks about the Spirit of God. He's now telling us that there is a God and that God exists as Spirit. And actually, he's talking about the third person within the Trinity when he talks about the Spirit of God. He's not talking about God having a spirit within him like you have the Spirit within you. He's talking about the Spirit of God, the third person in the Trinity. The Bible teaches us that there is the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, that God is three yet one, three distinct persons yet one, which is a concept we don't understand. But all he's saying here is that there's the Spirit of God. And then lastly, he's saying there's spiritual insights. There's insights into the Spirit world that can be discerned, but only can be discerned and understood if we have the Spirit, because they're spiritual things. They're things of God. First observation, there's a spiritual dimension within the world. There's a spiritual dimension within the world. The second observation that I think we can take away, used in my language here today, is that Paul identifies inattentional spiritual blindness. Right? People get so focused on whatever it is that they're focused on that they don't have eyes, they don't have ears, they don't have a mind to see and uncover and discover spiritual truths. People get stuck on stuff. Now, Paul talks about it as a mystery, right? This inattentional spiritual blindness. He says the man without the Spirit cannot understand the things that come from the Spirit of God. They are foolishness to him. He can't understand them because those things are spiritually discerned. Jesus said it like this in Matthew chapter 13. Though seeing they do not see, though hearing they do not hear or understand. And then he quotes Isaiah the prophet. who says, you will be ever hearing but never understanding. You will be ever seeing but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused, so they hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. So Jesus is identifying the reason why we have inattentional spiritual blindness. It's because our hearts have been hardened, calloused. There's another reason. Paul identifies, again, to the Corinthians in his second letter to them. He talks about there is another spiritual force that is at work, attempting to blind our eyes. The dark forces, the demonic, the satanic, the God of this age, the ideas of the age, the ideas of the world blind us. That's what Paul says. So there is inattentional spiritual blindness. Now, the third thing that Paul says is that there is a secret wisdom to life and relationship. There's a secret wisdom to life and relationship. Now, let's talk about this secret for a second. That word in the original language is mysterion. That's the Greek is mysterion, which is mysterion sounds like mystery, right? And the idea with this word is not that it is something that is impossible to be understood. Instead, the idea rooted within the word is it's something that cannot be uncovered and discovered independent of somebody informing, teaching, showing, revealing. It's not that God is impossible to know or to be known. It's that it's impossible for us as people to know God independent of him. We can't figure him out in and of our own selves and our own abilities. Which leads us to the fourth point, and that is the secret wisdom is revealed to us by the Spirit. It's the Spirit who shows us. So Paul says, we speak of God's secret wisdom, this wisdom that has been hidden and that God destined for our glory before time began, has been revealed to us by his Spirit. The only way is that God himself shows us, reveals himself to us. Now, there's an analogy that he then uses. The analogy he talks about is that there is a spirit within a person, and he says that nobody knows the thoughts of a person. And so right now you might be thinking about how many trusses, how many beams there are, or how many support beams there are that hold up the truss in the ceiling. Or you might be thinking about, why in the world do people wear plaid flannel? I don't like plaid flannel, but the guy over there, that one's not too bad. Or you might be thinking about the coffee that you got and the flavoring wasn't quite right. Or you might be thinking, that was perfect coffee that I had today. Or you might be wondering if the Eagles' offense is going to show up today or not. I mean, you could be thinking about all kinds of things. And here's the thing about that, right? The only person who knows what you are thinking about is you. The only person who knows is you. And the only way that anybody else will ever know that you are counting the trusses, or that you did not like your coffee, or that you did like your coffee, or that you care about the Philadelphia Eagles, the only way that anybody else will ever know any of that is that you open up your life and you share that with them. You reveal what it is that you are thinking. Paul's argument is simply this: there is a God. He is spiritual, and you as people can never figure him out. He must reveal himself to you for you to understand who he is. You know, there's this interesting story that has been told. I forget how many years, decades, centuries old this is. But it's the story of a number of blind people and an elephant. And an elephant comes into a community. And all of these blind men are led over to investigate the elephant. but they can't see and they don't know what an elephant is. And so the first guy goes up and he's touching part of the elephant, and what he's touching is the tail. And he says, "Oh, what I'm experiencing here is a snake." And then another guy goes up and he touches the side of the elephant. He said, "Oh, this must be a wall that I am touching." And then another guy touches the trunk of the elephant, and another the leg of the elephant. And these blind men are all explaining what it is that they are seeing and perceiving. And the object lesson is that as people, you need to be kind and respectful of other people, because they all may be talking about the same thing but have a different angle or a different perspective on it. Which maybe there's some truth to that. However, here's where the illustration then goes. It goes to talk about things that are spiritual in nature. And then how the illustration gets used is to say, "Oh, the blind men are like people. We're blind. We don't know who God is," which is true. And we go up, and it's the major religions of the world have gone up, and it's like maybe the Muslims have grabbed the towel, and they define and describe for us who God is. And the Jews have grabbed the ear and have described and told us who God and what God is like. And the Hindus have touched the leg, and they have come up with their descriptions. And the Christians, they have touched the side of the elephant, right? And there's this sense then in which, all of us, we're all describing God. Well, the one thing that's right about this illustration is that all people are blind, and none of us can see and perceive and know who God is. But where the illustration falls flat on its face is the idea that we as people walk up with all of these different ideas and say, we are describing God. It is an impossibility. Just like it is an impossibility for me to know what it is that you are thinking. The only way that we can know who God is or understand anything about God, have any spiritual understanding, is if God, who is spirit, reveals to us, our spirit, what he wants to reveal to us about himself. Now, one of the things that we learn in the Bible is that God says that he has revealed himself in all of creation. It's called general revelation. That God has communicated to people that he exists, and that there's something within all people that have this yearning and this desire to try and uncover and discover this spiritual being, God. The other thing that the Bible teaches us is that there's special revelation or specific revelation, or that God reveals himself in specific ways. One of which is he has spoken, and what he has spoken gets written down. And then people can read what it is that he has to say. And that is what gets collected in what is called the Bible. And the Bible over and over says of itself that these are the words of God. God spoke these words. These words came to me as a prophet, and I'm recording what it is that God has to say. They're God's ideas. So God reveals himself in creation. God reveals himself specifically through his written word. But God also has revealed himself by coming into the world as a person to show people, to reveal himself to people. And the Bible tells us that person is Jesus Christ, God in flesh, to reveal who God is so that we as people can understand spiritual truth. We can understand who God is. And then the other way that God has revealed himself, Paul highlights this one in this text, is he reveals himself through the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God, the third person in the Trinity, reveals, he uncovers, he illumines, he opens the eyes, he enables us to see and to hear spiritual truths. And there's lots and lots of spiritual truths. Now, all of this then leads to this concluding statement and application. So I write in my notes that we can receive the Spirit, understand the secret wisdom, and find the better way to life and relationship. Okay, so this is the final application point. And I write this, I say, can you go to the next slide for me? So I can read off the slide. What Paul is saying is that all people have available to them a better way to life than what they know or understand. It is a secret way. It's a hidden treasure of wisdom. There's something better in life that can only be found when God reveals himself to us. It can only be found through the Spirit of God, who's the one who knows the deep things of God, just like you're the only one who knows the deep things of you. If you have him, if you listen to him, if you follow him, he will influence your thinking and he will show you the better way to life and relationship. That's what God does. That's what the Spirit does. There is a better way to life and to relationships. Now, there's a guy who lived a long time ago. His name is John Calvin, and he wrote in 1572, The Institute of Christian Living. It's a book like about that thick. But in the beginning of his book, like very early on in his book, like page 7, he says this, he says, "For as the surest source of destination to men, or for as the surest source of destruction for people is to obey themselves, if you want to have a destroyed life, listen to yourself," is basically what he says there. People who listen to themselves end up with a destroyed life. For as the surest source of destruction to men is to obey themselves, so the only haven of safety is to have no other will, no other desire, no other wisdom than to follow the Lord or to listen to the Spirit wherever he leads. And then he says this, "Let this then be the first step to abandon ourselves and devote the whole energy of our minds to the pursuit of God." So the spiritual point he's getting at here is that you have a spirit, and if you trust yourself, you are going to get yourself into all kinds of problems, into all kinds of areas in your life, and you can't even probably figure out how many ways you're going to mess up your life, but you will, because you're listening to yourself, and yourself does not have wisdom and knowledge to know in and of yourself. You need something outside of you to find the true wisdom and knowledge in life. Now, I blew past my one slide that's in Colossians chapter 2, in which Paul says to the church of Colossae, you don't have to go there, but Paul says to the church of Colossae that in Jesus Christ is found the fullness of treasure. He's the hidden treasure and the fullness of all knowledge. Jesus is the one. It is in knowing and following him that we gain wisdom about life. Now, Calvin goes on to finish his thought in this way. He writes, "By service, I mean not only that which consists in verbal obedience, but that by which the mind," the spirit, right, "divested of its own carnal feelings." In other words, I'm not going to listen to my own thoughts. If I divest myself, get rid of those thoughts, and implicitly obey the call of the Spirit of God, listen to the Spirit of God, then this transformation, this is interesting, this transformation was unknown to all philosophies. The world's got all these ideas, is trying to figure out how to live life, trying to know the best way to live life. The world comes up with all these conclusions about this, and it's that, and it's all these things. This transformation has been unknown. The wisdom of the world doesn't understand it. They give the government of man to reason alone. In other words, they let people, the wisdom of the age says, let a person decide how a person should live. Let each one decide that. But Christian philosophy says, oh, no. bids her give place and yield complete submission to the Holy Spirit. When I listen to the Spirit, when I give complete submission to the Holy Spirit, follow the Holy Spirit, then this is what happens. The man himself no longer lives. I destroy, I kill, and that's the language that Paul uses in Romans, put to death that part of you, inside of you, the spiritual part of you that is of you, that is fleshly, and instead have only the mind of Christ and let Christ live and reign in you. So when this happens, then you have wisdom. You have wisdom as to know in how to find meaning and purpose in life, and it greatly shapes then your relationships. Caden, my son, can you hand me this? I forgot to bring it along. Thank you. All right, so this is a series on cultivating meaningful relationships. I've got 2 minutes to talk about how this applies to meaningful relationships. But you have to understand this big idea first, right? That there's such a thing as a spiritual world. There's such a thing as us having inadvertent spiritual blindness, that there's such a thing as that God has revealed this mystery, that the only way that we can understand this mystery of wisdom is only by the Spirit of God revealing it. And its application is so complex. There's so many ways that this applies to our daily lives. First of all, it starts with this. It all begins right here. If you've never said, God, I've been trying to figure you out. I've come up with my own ideas. I've been chasing after these ideas. I've been trying to live my life. This is the starting point. God, I'm done trying to figure it out. I can't figure it out. I'm going to put my faith. Okay, even though I don't really know you, even though I'm just hearing about this and I'm hearing about these truths in the Bible, and I'm not really even totally certain about all this, but this is where it starts. God, I surrender to you. Okay, I surrender to you. I'm gonna say, you're bigger than me. I don't understand you, but I'm gonna stop trying to figure it out on my own. I surrender to you. I'm gonna put my faith in. I'm gonna believe. I'm going to accept that even though as crazy as it can be, that you came into the world as a person, Jesus Christ, and that you died, and somehow your death on the cross takes the penalty for my sin. I'm going to believe that. That's where it starts. And when you say that, you mean that from your heart, the Spirit of God comes and lives within you. Instantly, the Spirit of God comes and lives within you. And now you have spiritual eyes. Now, many of you are at that place already in which you've come to that conclusion, and the Spirit is living within you. Now what you need to do is you need to have ears to hear the Spirit. You need to listen to the Spirit. You need to follow the leadership of the Spirit, and the Spirit of God will constantly be convicting you. If you keep living in the flesh, Paul says this in Galatians chapter 5. He lists, if you live according to the flesh, and these are the ways of the flesh, and there's a whole big long list of stuff. He says, but if you live according to the Spirit, if you have your mind set on the Spirit, if you listen to the Spirit, you'll be full of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness. This will be the fruit. It's the evidence that you are listening to the Spirit. This has such huge ramifications in our relationships. And to just illustrate it in one small way, I brought along an object lesson. Does anybody know what this is? Oh, say that again. Yeah, I did not hear any guy say that. Only a woman. Guys, you know what this is called? This is called a loofah. I did not know what this was called. I had to look it up. I had to take a picture. It's like, what are these things that people use? So it's a loofah, exfoliating skin cleanser, something or other thing. All right? So actually, that's not what this is. This really is, in my life, an obstacle to meaningful relationship with my wife. This thing has gotten in the way to me connecting with my wife. Why? Well, because this thing hangs on the handle of the shower. And one day, it appeared there. I'm like, what is this pink thing? And what is it doing there? And when I go to grab the handle, I'm grabbing this thing, and I can't turn the handle. And it's like, what is this doing? take it off, move it so I can turn the handle. And then I left it wherever I left it, and then I come back the next day and it's hanging there. And this has been going on for a couple of years. My wife told me it was 3 years ago that we got that, or she got that. And here is the deal. Within the past month, I've been thinking about this thing. I've been thinking about this, and what I've been thinking about is, why do I take it off and move it, and why has it become a tiny little source of conflict between my wife and I? Even though it doesn't get really talked about, it just kind of gets moved around in the shower, you know? It gets moved around. But it's obvious when I get in, like, oops, I didn't put it back in the right place. And I'm sitting there thinking, why can't it just hang right there? Like, what's wrong with that? Like, I put it there before, like, why can't it stay there, right? And these are the thoughts of who? Kirk, right? What has happened over the past month, for whatever reason, the Spirit of God has been saying to me, why are you making a deal with this thing? Like, why is this, like, right? And I started to think about it. And so last week when I was working on this message, my wife was like, what have you been doing? And I explained to her the message. And then all of a sudden, this loofah thing came to my mind as I began to say, this is what this message is about. It's about how I am spiritually blind. It's about how I am so focused on what it is that I want and the way that I want things to be, that I can't even see you. Worship team, come on up, please. I can't even see you. I don't even see what it is that you want. I'm not even thinking about that. And the Spirit of God is showing me that I am blind to my wife's interests, concerns. I'm thinking only about me, and that it's an annoyance. And so I put it over there to kind of get the annoying thing out of the way. You see, it's the Spirit of God revealing in my spirit the obstacle between my relationship with my wife. And apart from the Spirit of God, I would never figure this out. I would never figure it out. It would just be this stupid paint thing that's annoying, and it just keeps getting bounced around. But the Spirit has revealed. The Spirit has revealed in me. He moved the milk carton out of the way so I could see the ketchup bottle. The Spirit revealed that. And now I can't be like that. I need to change. I need to think of my wife and her interests above me and mine. Would you pray with me? Jesus, I thank you for this incredibly profound teaching. Help us as people to submit, to give in to your Spirit, to follow you in every area of our life, all of the time. So come rest on us, Spirit of God. Guide us, lead us, and it's in your name I pray. Amen. Let's stand, church, and sing this final song.
There's nothing worth more that could ever come close. Nothing can compare. Your
applications of this truth I just can't tell you how profound they are. That's why when we talk about being internally strong, we say the very first thing is you've got to know Jesus and his word. You got to be in his word. You got to know Jesus. If you know him and his word, he comes and he lives within you and he works and he changes you and he breaks you down and he transforms you into his likeness. But it's a choice. Every one of us have this choice to listen to the Spirit, to push the Spirit away. So as a church, let's be these people who are cultivating the hearing of the Spirit of God and being obedient to him. Go out and live those truths. We'll see you next week.